Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the Beyond Cancer series. My name is Gail, aka Sunshine, and I will be leading the interview today with three amazing brain cancer survivors. So first, I just want to tell you a little bit about Epic Experience. Epic was started in 2012 by Nancy Farrow after her oldest son, was diagnosed with cancer. And after treatment was over, had a hard time kind of getting back on track, experienced some depression and things like that. He went to a program that really changed his life, and it was focused on young adults. And Nancy thought, why not do this for all cancer survivors, no matter what their age? And that's how Epic Experience was born. So ever since then, we've done weekly camps up until COVID during the summer and winter. And so far, we've hosted around 500 campers. Because of COVID, we've kind of had to change things a little bit this summer. So we're going to actually be doing some virtual camps, and you can learn more about that on the Epic Experience website. Another thing we've done to kind of reach out to our very long waiting list is things like this Beyond Cancer series. This series is put on by the alumni team, and the alumni team is made up of 9 of us who have attended an Epic camp. We live all over the US. We have all different kinds of cancer. And our goal is really to help maintain this sense of community that develops at camp. We do that through Facebook groups, through the series, and through other things like that. So we want to thank our sponsor, Eisai, which is a Japanese pharmaceutical company, for sponsoring this event and others. We really appreciate their support. So we have a number of ongoing activities right now, most of them virtual, almost all of them virtual. You can check those out on the website. And we have also an upcoming big event, Raptoberfest, in August. You can find out more details about that on the website as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our 3 brain cancer survivors. We have Sabine, Jim, and Ellen. And I'm going to let them tell you a little bit more about themselves after they all get on here. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, today's topic is living with brain cancer. And so we have 3 amazing survivors here who are going to tell you their story. If you have any questions or comments or anything during the course of our discussion, there's a place where you can put live comments and we will have them answer them. Okay. All right. So first, why don't you each tell me who you are, where you're from, your camp nickname, and when you went to camp. Let's start with that. Sabine, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sabine. My Epic camp name is B. I live in New Jersey, about an hour outside of New York City. Well, I should say no traffic, 1 hour. That's always a big thing over here, although it's been nice over the past 3 months. I went to camp in May 2016, so about 4 years ago. It was a summer camp. And yeah, I'm also part of the Epic Experience alumni team, together with Gail, who's on it as well. And I'm a member on Epic's board of directors.
Great, thank you. Jim?
Hi, my name is Jim Myers. I live outside of Philadelphia, about 40 minutes. I attended camp at the 7W Ranch over winter. Our camp name was the Chemo Sabis, and that was in February of 2018.
Thank you. And your camp name is?
Twiz.
Twiz, okay. Ellen?
Okay, my name is Ellen, and my camp name is Spicy, and I live in Denver, Colorado, and I attended camp in summer, August 2018.
Great, awesome. All right, so we're here to talk about brain cancer. So the next thing I want to ask you guys is about your diagnosis. When, the type of tumor, all the, the grade, treatments, all of the stuff that went around with the diagnosis itself. And I'm going to let you all jump in if that's, or when you feel like it. If you start fighting, I'll just start calling on you now. So whoever feels like going, go for it.
Okay, I can start out if that's all right.
All right.
So for me, I first found out I even had anything going on, it was 2 days before Christmas. I was 23 years old. And then I had a grand mal seizure when I was actually sitting at my kitchen table about to sit down for dinner. Woke up, ended up in the emergency room. They did the scan to see what was going on and found the initial tumor, which was actually the size of a softball in my head. And I had emergency surgery at that time to remove it. It was gross total resection. And they had informed me that everything was benign. They got everything and I was good to go. So that was actually during my junior year of college. Within 10 days, I was back at school and finished out the semester. And I was healthy up until that point, graduated college and moved out to Chicago, worked there for a year, ended up moving back home to Philadelphia. And during that time, I, was kind of dealing with some of the symptoms from surgery and everything, but felt mostly great and was just doing routine follow-up scans. And my first scan when I came home, the doctor gave me a call and he said, you need to come in. And they let me know that the tumor had changed and it was now malignant. So then they underwent another surgery, this time with a functional MRI because it was a little bit in a different spot. So they had to make sure that everything was kind of, where everything was lighting up as they did the surgery. And then that was followed by 13 months of Temodar, which was through a pill of chemotherapy, and 6 months of proton therapy radiation. So that was my treatment plan. Yeah, and here I am today. So I'm 28 now. My first surgery was at 23, so 5 years later from when it all started, and I'm just finishing up my first year back teaching full time, which is a new profession for me too. So just thankful to be where I'm at. So that's a little bit about kind of my journey.
Let me ask you a question. What did they give you? I know there are different types of brain tumors. Did they name it and give it a grade?
Yes. So once I finally got everything sorted out with the pathology and everything, my current tumor is anaplastic astrocytoma, which would be grade 3. And I would be IDH1 mutant, so which is an important marker for the cancer.
And are you? Did you say you're done with treatment? You're not right now. They're not doing any.
Yeah. So right now I'm just doing monthly scans every 4 months, and just trying. I take like a routine of natural supplements, but just try and work out, stay healthy, and do the best I can.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
I don't even, we've never met. I've never met Jim, but it's crazy because we actually have pretty similar stories. Wow. I was diagnosed at 23 as well. I had just graduated college and I was 1 month into my first job out of college. I was working at the state capitol and had a grand mal seizure walking into the capitol. And
oh my God.
when I was, I remember like kind of going down on the steps. And then when I finally came back to consciousness, I was surrounded by paramedics, didn't know where I was, who I was, didn't know that I worked at the Capitol, didn't know anything about, I didn't know anything. As I think people with seizures, know that it erases your mind, or it can at least, and
right.
So, yeah. And then I had already had a different sort of seizure a month before that, a smaller one that I didn't go unconscious for. And they kind of thought, they actually thought it was an atypical migraine, which I had not heard of.
No.
And so they discovered the tumor. And then shortly after I started Temodar and did that for a year. And then after I finished that, I went a year, and then I went to Epic camp. Actually, that was my first time deciding to seek out like being with other people with cancer. And then right when I got home from that, I had a relapse. It's inoperable, but it grew. And so I had to do treatment again. And I did radiation and PCV. And I finished that in November. And so that's my treatment. And that's what my kind of my experience with treatment and kind of the journey I've been on so far. But yeah.
So you just finished in November. So right now you're not doing anything. What are they doing?
Right now we're just watching it. I had an MRI today, got the news, and it's stable. So
yeah. So your stage, or I should say grade, your grade and type of tumor was exactly the same as Jim's?
Not exactly the same. It's oligoastrocytoma, and it's grade 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and inoperable. So I haven't had a surgery, just the biopsy to confirm it was malignant, but it's in the right parietal lobe. So that's So.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. B?
Yeah, so my story is also very similar, except I was older. Just turn the numbers. I was 32. I had a grand mal seizure in the middle of the night, and I remember, and that's the only thing I do remember, is like I woke up, I felt nauseous, I ran into the bathroom to throw up, and then the next day I woke up in the hospital. Like, that's all I know. My husband found me shaking on the bathroom floor. That's what he told me, and then like similar to Twist's story, like paramedics and whatnot. And the only difference is we had a baby. Like, my daughter was 5 months old at the time. So it was very challenging and very scary to go through something like that. The pathology took forever to come back, like over 6 weeks. And my family from overseas, everyone is overseas. It's just my husband and I here from Germany. And our little one, who's now 6,
wow.
and not so little anymore. But they were like every day, like multiple phone calls. And what is it? Is it cancerous? And they drove me nuts. Like, that was even worse than the weight itself, honestly. But so when we were referred to an oncologist by my neurosurgeon, and we went, my husband and I, and we were told it's a grade 2 astrocytoma. And by then I had already written on, all the different types, and I knew astrocytomas are not the best types to have. But I knew that grade 2 was okay-ish. And then on the way back home, I called my sister, who works in the medical field in Europe, and I told her, hey, it's a grade 2 astrocytoma. And she said, no, don't tell me, like, read me the report. And I did. And in the report, it said grade 3. So I was like, what is this? Like, why would he tell me it's a grade 2, which requires just a watch and wait treatment approach? So you just go in regularly for scans, whereas a grade 3 diagnosis is like the full-on, radiation and chemotherapy. And that's what I went with, obviously, after I found myself a new oncologist. I'm treated now at Sloan Kettering, and he is my new oncologist is from Germany as well. It's not by intention, but it just turned out to be this way, and it adds another layer of comfort somehow. It's difficult to explain, but so I did 6 weeks of daily radiation treatment, and then followed up with the year of the drug that's called Temodar. It's an oral chemo drug. You take it for 5 days, and then you pause for 23 days. And the funny story behind this, the person who has invented that regimen, his name is Roger Stupp. I once sat next to him at a conference, and then I texted my husband. It's like meeting a celebrity if you meet this guy, because there's only 2 different chemo drugs, right? There's a PCV that Alan is taking or had taken, and then there's Temodar. So my husband was like, ask him why it's 5:23. So I did ask him, And he said, I was like, whoa, this is so random. He said, well, the office and the lab is open Monday through Friday, and we have to work with the mice. So that's what we gave them Monday through Friday, 5 days on. And then we waited what happened. And this is, yeah, there was a fun learning out of this. And then years later, like a few years ago, I met his German wife here in New Jersey.
Oh.
So yeah, it's just a funny backstory too.
Well, and it's the little things, right? I mean, yeah, that's interesting. All three of you had seizures, right? Is that a common symptom? And did you have other symptoms that now looking back, you realize, oh, maybe that, maybe at the time you didn't realize that it was a symptom, but now in hindsight, you do.
Yeah, so I can go first again, and I just want to share about Dr. Stroop. I actually got to see him speak 2 years ago at Penn, and it was pretty cool because, as you said, there's literally 2 options out there. So just to relate to that, and I also want to go back to the pathology because I think it's so important what you said, and to anyone who's listening. An unfortunate part about my treatment, I'm now being treated at Penn and very confident with my team. But when the doctor had told me I had a ganglioglioma, and then I went back and found out I had advanced brain cancer, we were extremely confused how that happened, and went back and read the pathology to find that the actual report at that time was graded as a grade 2 astrocytoma, and I just never knew. So, I just wanted to share that experience as well because, to hear other people do that. But, for me, the symptoms, it was tough because they told me my initial tumor I had was growing for 7 to 10 years. And I didn't really have any symptoms. I was an athlete. I played ice hockey. I did kind of everything normal. But looking back, I think the symptoms were really in my personality that kind of changed, and my temperament, and kind of how I acted, and those sorts of things. And then, looking back in my second tumor, kind of realizing the absent seizures that I was probably having, and those sorts of things that just I wasn't aware of at first. But yeah, those are kind of like the other side effects or things that I noticed going along with it. But yeah, I just wanted to share that as well.
Did you, like with the personality, did people point it out to you, or was it something that you noticed, like in yourself?
So I noticed it a little bit. A lot of it was just kind of like a shorter fuse.
Interesting.
And it was in college, really, and with like roommates who I would just get along with all the time, and I could feel myself, being frustrated where I wouldn't before. And then, finally, once I got everything, fixed, and my friends knew I was sick and had other things going on, but it was kind of, everyone was kind of like, yeah, man, wow, like you're back to normal. So
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Either of you, the other symptoms that now you kind of realize were there?
I know I've had my tumor since I was 8 years old because I had a seizure when I was 8, and I was being monitored at Children's Hospital, and my left leg, when I was all growing up, used to drag when I would walk. Sometimes it was just at random moments I would have an issue with my left leg, and my tumor affects my left side motor skills. And at Children's Hospital, they said I had an abnormality on the part of my brain where my tumor is. And they were like, I would talk about these issues with my left leg, and then they didn't, like my brain surgeon who did my biopsy, when we finally were discovering this tumor and realizing that I had cancer, he said I've tried to not, act horrified, but he's horrified that as a child, they didn't kind of put this whole left leg dragging, I have this abnormality, which was actually a tumor, together. And he said that if he had been, my doctor, he probably would have not done brain surgery on an 8-year-old, but would have, probably created more of a plan instead of just watch this little abnormality at the time. And so I may not have, but I think of it as probably a positive thing that it worked out that way, because I got to live a normal life through high school, college. I got to have experiences that he said by the time I was 17 or 18, he probably would have had me on chemo. And that would have been, I wouldn't have really probably wanted a life like that. So I got to have a different kind of life till I was 23. So happy about that.
I'm curious, how big did the abnormality grow to when it was actually identified as a tumor?
I believe 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters. So yeah, I mean, it ended up not being huge. So,
but it's the placement that's obviously causing. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, B.
Yeah. I guess what's very important to understand that no matter how big or small a brain tumor is or how it's graded, and I know they differ between benign and malignant, like any brain tumor can be deadly, unfortunately, because of the limited space that you just have in your cranium. So, mine was only golf ball size, but it caused a seizure. And I mean, nobody knows how long it's been there. I suspect it's been there since I was a child as well, because I do have a rare gene mutation that they found that's very common in pediatric brain tumors. And I remember having dizzy spells a lot when I went through puberty, and quite often a tumor feeds off hormones and growth hormones especially. So puberty could have been a trigger for that. And also, I mean, I was pregnant the year leading up to the discovery of my tumor. I was fine the moment the baby was out, but oh boy, I had the worst pregnancy ever. Like, I was nauseous and vomiting 24/7 for 9 months straight. I hated it. I really didn't enjoy it. I think I had 11 days total where I did not. And I'm sorry to be this but it was not enjoyable for me. And I've had many deja vus that I found out now, or like after I was diagnosed, that are also a common sign, and actually a seizure, a focal seizure sign that my memory was so bad. But there's a term for that. It's called baby brain or mommy brain or whatever. And it was only the day I had just started going back to work, and we found a daycare right next to my company where I could still breastfeed my baby. And I had my lunch bag in the back side of the car, pulled into the parking lot. Obviously, on any other day, I would drive to the daycare, drop her off, go to work. And if the lunch bag hadn't been on the back seat, car side, I would have forgotten my baby there. I turned to pick it, and this way I turned to pick it, and I said, "Oh shit! She's still here." Like I was, and that was the day when I thought something is wrong, but I didn't act on it. And then 2 or 3 days later, I had my seizure.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's scary.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm
go ahead.
Surprised none of us had like headaches, and not really surprised, I have to say, because we have been in this, and we know that headaches are not very, I mean, they are common, but they are not necessarily, you don't have to have headaches in order to think, oh, there's a brain tumor causing this. But,
really, that would have been one of my assumptions, that a headache is one of the most common.
At least not for me, no.
Interesting. For either of you?
Yeah, I find that weird too, because when I look up on, like, when we see the list of what are the most common, symptoms of brain cancer, it always seems like seizures is the last thing on the list. And I think that was kind of weird. It's like, or not weird, I guess, but it does say like other things. And like, maybe it's because seizures is maybe the most extreme. Like you really hope that that's not what you have, because it's terrible. It really sucks. But yeah. I didn't have headaches to like lead me to a diagnosis. That wasn't what I had.
Yeah, I was headache free. I didn't really have any idea. No.
Well, I learned something today, because that would have been my assumption, is that was one of the most common symptoms. Interesting. In case you're just joining us today, we are talking with 3 brain cancer survivors. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the live comments, and we'll put them up here and we'll ask our panelists. So I'm curious, for all three of you, what were your initial thoughts? I mean, shock, I'm sure, but I mean, what else? What other thoughts and emotions, and when you found out, how did you respond?
I can start. It was very short. All I said for days was, take it out, take it out, take it out. I don't want anything in my brain that doesn't belong. Yeah. And they had offered me a biopsy that I didn't want because it meant they still had to open some part of my brain. I was like, if you go in there, take it out.
Yeah.
There was, yeah.
I can imagine. And you said you did have surgery, or you ended up not having?
Right away. It was, I never left the hospital after my seizure. Yeah, it was emergency surgery.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, my initial reaction, with my first surgery, I didn't have a choice, and I barely remembered everything. It happened so fast, like it was emergency surgery. And then my second one, after I had my first surgery, I did a lot of reading about brain tumors and all those sorts of things. So, once I heard that diagnosis and what it had changed to the second time, I kind of knew what it meant, so just went and looked for the best options possible. And, yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
For me, I immediately, I was honestly disgusted with myself. Not that I thought cancer was gross. I was like, I told my doctor the day that he told me that, I was like, I thought it was a gross thing. And I finally realized that that's not what it is. But I pictured it. I pictured the cancer actually. And then the second thought was, I felt like my life was over. I thought, because I have seizures and because I take seizure medication, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but I was like, I'm 23 years old at the time. And I was like, I can't drink alcohol again. I thought, I think that this is how a lot of people feel, but I don't know if everybody I thought, who's going to love me now? I at the time was not in a relationship. And I thought, are my friends gonna I didn't know I didn't know the reaction that people were gonna have. I was a absolute mess, and it was a long time until I felt normal. I felt like I couldn't go to a sporting event ever again, because I'm like, oh, well, if I can't drink, that's kind of it's not that I was someone who would get, wasted or anything, but it just feels like that's what you do. I was like, go to concerts because I won't be able to just do what everyone's doing. I felt like I had been robbed. I couldn't drive. I thought, I'm going to lose my hair. And luckily with Temodar, I didn't. But then with radiation, I did. And I know that I actually contacted Sabine about my hair when I finally got to that point. But I can't even tell you well, I know that you guys understand, but the devastation of cancer it was so horrible for so long. And now I'm in, after 4 years, I just hit 4 years in May. But yeah, it was so horrible and shocking and everything. Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to ask you first, Ellen, because you kind of mentioned it with your family and friends and the way you felt about it. How did you go about telling them, given kind of the perspective you had? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I went to social media and I shared it on social media, and I share on social media what's going on in kind of my cancer world. And so I go about it that way, just because when you do it that way, then you don't have to be like, well, let me text this person and this person and let them know individually. So that's kind of the method I've chose. So
yeah. And you two also, how did you go about telling family, friends? I don't know if there's a difference in the way you told family and friends. You can talk about that also.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I also wanted to say to Ellen, being 23, everything you just talked about. You know, I had all those same emotions. So definitely connect with that. It's like a train just coming to like a screeching halt at 23. So just wanted to connect with that. But for me, I was actually with, this is really weird, but after I had my follow-up MRI, when I had moved back, I had a really weird feeling that something was wrong. So I took the CD and put it in my computer at home. And I'm like, what are the chances that my computer is going to even read this CD?
Wow.
So I put it in. Next thing I know, it pops up. And I'm looking at it, and I had seen enough brain scans, and I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, this doesn't look right, because, you know, there's like a golf ball back there. And I'm like, well, that can't be right. But I knew what kind of was coming. And then I was with my parents when I found out, told both my brothers. And then for my friends, it was just kind of, you know, one at a time, told them personally. And, you know, I don't do too much with social media, to be honest. And that's kind of something, you know, with my generation, that's huge, and, you know, something I could probably do more of to reach out and share my story. But, you know, I've just kind of kept a close personal circle, I guess, is kind of been my experience. But yeah, that's kind of how I went about it.
Thank you. Dee?
Yeah, so I have mentioned earlier that all of our family lives in Germany. So my husband was the one sharing the news with them. He was not allowed in the ambulance with me because of the baby. He had to follow along. And I think it was on that 30-minute ride to the local next hospital that he called my sister, who is my closest person. She's and she had just woken up to go to work, and she was then the gatekeeper or the distribution for everyone else there, at least for my side of the family. He also, my husband also called his parents, and they immediately booked a flight, and they were there the next day. And that was mainly to take care of the baby, obviously, because we do have friends here, but back then we both worked a lot, and all of our friends were co-workers. And so the first day and night, she was with my husband's secretary, actually, whom she knew. And I always joke, or we always joke, that God gave us the most perfect baby for a life with a brain cancer, because she's so easygoing. She sleeps a lot. I was still breastfeeding full time at that time, and my in-laws actually switched her to formula feeding. They had to. I was not able to, and my husband was at the hospital. And then to share with friends, we've always had a blog where we would post pictures of our life over here, and then from the baby and things. So I just added another tab to it that I called brain tumor stuff or something. And I had written a letter and sent that out per email to all of our friends with the link to the blog, to if they chose to keep them informed. I didn't want to blast something out for people who are not interested, so that way they could go there whenever they felt I want an update. And we actually still do that. I put my MRI days on there and the results, and
Awesome. And how did you guys find the way people responded? How did people respond? And particularly, how did people provide support in a way that was the most helpful to you? And if you want to comment on what wasn't helpful, you can, but I'm wondering what did you find, you know, the most helpful in the way that people supported you?
So for us, most certainly it was first my in-laws who came, and obviously all the help that was needed at home to keep a baby alive while both parents aren't available. My sister was the next one to come, then my dad, then my aunt, and they all stayed for not just a couple of days, but a few months. So we actually covered a full year of that, because like Alan said, like once you have a seizure, depending on the law in your state, you're not allowed to drive. So I couldn't drive for 6 months, I believe. But with the seizure medication that is kind of mandatory once you have one, I think I was on it for 2 years. You need that support. And then after that year, we actually did cover another year with a live-in nanny, because I would sleep so much.
Oh yeah, I imagine. Good. You guys?
So for me, like I said, my first one, I went back to school, and it was really difficult. And in that time, I shared my story with all my professors and friends, and I had some people who were extremely supportive and said, let me know and I'll do anything. And I had other people who, it was an MRI was another missed absence to class. So, that was kind of a unique experience at 23. It kind of felt a little awakening, I guess. It was kind of like, wow, people really are going to treat me like this, even though, I just had this happen.
Yeah.
And then my second one, I was working full time as a financial analyst, and I kind of felt the opposite reaction. I had a lot of positive people in the office, and they understand, kind of what goes on and how difficult it is, and a lot of them were very respectful and supportive. But it was just at that point it was too difficult for me to do that type of work. So made the decision to actually go back to school and become a teacher. So I had, kind of a mixed bag, but the important part was also I always had, my family there to support me too.
Great.
I think the things that the way people supported the best was just listening, and people that would be willing to actually just listen to like how I'm doing, how I'm feeling. Those were the people that were the best. But as we know, there's some people who just kind of abandoned, us like in the hardest times, and that really sucked. But I do have some great friends that were great listeners, and I appreciate them so much. And I'm very fortunate that people at work have been so accommodating to me in with needing to go to appointments and things, because there's so many appointments, and that's a great support that I've been able to have. And a big one is not telling me how to feel, and I appreciate everybody that just lets me feel how I feel and lets me just talk about it, and not kind of expect me to feel a certain way about it all.
Yep, definitely. We have a question from Suzanne. She would like to know, what types of lifestyle changes have you guys made, if any, since being diagnosed?
I have one.
Yeah.
I started to do, I'm not sure if, so neither of you, no one here is from Colorado, right?
I am, but I'm not.
Okay. So the Be Fit, Be Well program at Anschutz, okay, yeah. I started to be a lot more physically active, and that made a really big change into how I feel. And so that program is just it's suited, it like is a program with personal trainers that work with just cancer patients, and they they match what they are having you do to what your treatment is like and where you are. And that was I'm not someone who has ever really been into like fitness, and that was a great change for me, and never thought I would be like into that, but it's been really great.
So they have you, like, they give you a program at the gym, or running, or elliptical machines, or whatever it is, weights, all those kind of things?
Yeah, it's all strength training for pretty much the most part, and it's just very I can't think of the word. I'm having
brain fart. Yeah.
I can't even think of the other word. The chemo brain. That's the other word I can't think of. And it's suited. It's very like wherever you are, like whatever limitation.
It's tailored just for you.
Yes, and they're right there with you, and they're
awesome.
They're incredible.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you two?
I've made a change in my diet. And that was mostly born out of the, I'm more like the type A personality. I didn't want to have things done to me. I wanted to take an active role in it. And I felt nutrition and exercise as well were the easy ones. For that, I have worked with a nutritionist who, based on my blood labs and results, come up with a supplement vitamin plan. I've never taken any of those before I was diagnosed, but now I still do to this day. And then I read up a lot on the ketogenic diet, and I tried that for about a year, and I have never had this as much energy as I had during this time, I have to say.
Really?
And it's not because it's, like it's like a cancer diet or whatever, not at all. It's actually born or good for people who have seizures. So that was my major reason why I didn't want to experience another seizure, and luckily I never have. So I have to knock on something. It was just this one time, but that was my biggest change. And I was so much into nutrition at that time that I actually took an online class for personal nutrition and got a diploma from some random school. But after that year, I didn't want to restrict my life. There's always the quality in life that I just cannot do without chocolate. Honestly, I have a sweet tooth.
I hear you.
And so today, or for many years now, what I have been doing, like at home, we eat super clean, mostly vegan. But whenever I travel or go out or go to a friend's house, I don't care. I eat whatever. So that's my 80%, 20% rule. And I've been doing well so far.
Great. Jim?
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of a bit of the opposite. When I was diagnosed and had to go through treatment, I kind of had the approach like, all right, I'm going to work out every single day. And I did. I went to the gym and tried to stay in shape and said, kind of take the stubborn approach. But really in the last year, kind of going back to work full time, I mean, I don't go to the gym anymore, because it's extremely difficult. It's really tiring. I do take kind of more naps to kind of keep my energy up, which I never would think I would have to do at 28. I don't drink alcohol. I try and eat healthy and eat clean for the most part, but I do also have a sweet tooth. So, I still live a little bit in that way. So I'm not strictly on any diet, but, I've kind of had to, as people might say, be a little more kind to myself and just realize that, I'm not the same as everybody else like I used to be. And, I can't keep up, and it is hard for me to work, a full day no matter what. So, just kind of advocate for myself in those ways and just live as best I can, really.
Yeah, definitely. We have another question from Chris. How do you respond to people who think there is nothing wrong with you because you don't look sick? Have you ever heard that? I'm sure you have. How do you guys respond when somebody says that? Either what you think and then what you actually say, if they happen to be different. And then, but how do you respond?
Well, so you can go ahead, Sabine.
I just say, I just try to use the opportunity and educate them a little bit about invisible illness and disease and mental stuff. So that's my approach.
Yeah.
And thinking something else.
Which you can share or not. That's completely. Jim, what were you going to say?
So I find that people say that a lot, and I think more often than not, people who don't know, try to say that as a compliment. But when it does frustrate me is when it comes from my friends who say like, you are beating cancer, or you don't look sick, or like you're not one of those statistics, or those sorts of things, when you know the facts and you know the situation, and you don't want anyone to necessarily like validate your situation, but being told you don't look sick and you're good to go when every day you're kind of living with the opposite, can be frustrating. And it's just it's tough for people our age to have that type of perspective, really. And I don't know if it's necessarily fair to expect them to.
Yeah. Interesting.
I completely agree with both those statements. And it's interesting because when I first was going through treatment the first time, and I was just on Temodar, so I had long hair, and people in the cancer center would always think that I was, because my mom comes with me to all my appointments, and it was clear that people thought I was my mom's caregiver. And now, because, well, maybe not as much now because my hair is like a little bit longer, well, quite a bit longer, but now, but when it was really obvious that I was the cancer patient, it changed. But it was when I was called, and then I would go first, and they were like, oh, like they thought that she was the cancer patient because she's older. And it's just interesting how people, they look at you and they can't, imagine that a young person at 23, and I mean, now I'm 27, but that they would, they just don't know. So,
I find it interesting how people make the connection from the hair, especially if you are a female, to how sick you are or not. I've had a woman tell me, well, this chemo cannot be a real chemo because you're not losing your hair. So, and then to go back to Chris' question, what bothers me more than the question or the remark, you don't look sick, is, I forget a lot of stuff too. Like, this actually bothers me the most, because with age, people forget more stuff, but they haven't had open brain surgery, they haven't had radiation, and they haven't had chemo on top of all of that. So it's very, this always,
interesting. Well, and this goes right into my next question I was going to ask, is what kind of side effects are you having? And chemo brain is one that we all talk about, and you kind of just touched on it, that with brain surgery, you're taking it either a step farther. You've had surgery or radiation right there or whatever. What other kind of side effects are you guys having, whether it's cognitive, physical, emotional, things like that?
So I like the way Sabine kind of piled everything on top there, because it really is. And I want to add, on top of that, the seizure medicine and all those side effects, and, those random memory things, I mean, all the time. And like you said, whether it's chemo brain or the seizure or the open or the surgery, that's one of them. For me, sometimes it can be, still a little tough to like control my emotions. And that's one of the side effects from seizure medicine. That's one of the side effects from my surgery. Maybe it's just me. So that's something that I deal with. And then some things that kind of really changed for me recently were lots of light sensitivity. I used to like love golfing like during the day, but I just can't even go out during the sun. Really sensitive to heat. And then a lot of times if I like exert myself, I'll actually get swelling kind of in this site where I had surgery. So those are kind of some of the things that I deal with now. But, all in all, being able to work and still, do this, I feel, pretty good.
Yeah. Awesome. How about you guys?
Go ahead.
Okay. I would say cognitively, I do have a lot of struggles with with word finding. I'm like, have a word on the tip of my tongue, can't come up with it. I have a hard time if I'm given like more than 2 directions at one time. I have to have it repeated. I can't remember more than a couple directions. That's always really embarrassing and difficult at the office, because I like want to prove that like I'm smart. I know I am, but I hate it when I'm struggling sometimes with like, okay, what did you just say? Like I got to write it down really quick or something. And then multitasking or just receiving too much information, and so I really do have some cognitive impacts from my treatment. Absolutely. And it really sucks. I can't even name them all, because it's
What about your leg, Ellen? Does it still bother you? Do you still have anything going on there?
every once in a while, a little bit, but I mean, it was never to the point where anybody would really notice it. Even when I was growing up, it was something that like I would notice, but no, not so much anymore. So.
Yeah, I guess it depends on where the tumor is located. I never had any mobile motor skill issues. Mine was also right here in my right frontal lobe. And this is where the personality is. And then on top, like going in there, there's the frontal lobe syndrome you may have heard of. It was actually back in the day an approach to remove the frontal lobe for hysterical women, like women who are like considered crazy. They took part of that out to mute them. And with the seizure medication that I was on, it similar to Jim, it had the effect of me being super aggressive. I was throwing plates at that time. Wow. My husband sometimes had to strangle, like really hold me tight so I wouldn't go nuts. But that stopped as soon as I stopped that medication. And everything else is
Keppra? Because that happened to me on Keppra.
Yeah. That's the famous Keppra rage.
Crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's I was on Keppra and Vimpat, so too.
Oh, I'm on Vimpat.
I'm on Vimpat now, yeah.
I like that better.
Yeah.
But memory loss, the light sensitivity, I still have that to this day too. I never go outside even in the winter without sunglasses. And I'm like mental fatigue, depending on how much sleep I got the day before or that day. So I also take a lot of naps. And it's difficult to explain that to others. But the way I'm trying to explain is like, picture a broken arm and you put a cast around it and then it heals for 6 or 8 weeks and then you take the cast off and the bone is fine. With the brain, you cannot put a cast around a brain, obviously, but you also cannot just hold it still because you still see and hear and think and do all of these things. And the only time it can truly heal is when you sleep. So sleep is the cast. And so it just takes so much longer for a brain to heal and to process everything that's coming in. I just take power naps like everywhere. I'm pretty sure whoever has seen me at Epic has seen me sleep.
I'm glad to know that you guys both are like still having to take naps as much, because I do too, and I feel like there's this perception that I'm lazy from other people sometimes, and I'm like, no, like I really have to take a nap. Like I feel like, the fatigue and the exhaustion sometimes, and I really need to take a nap, and I don't want the perception that I'm lazy sometimes. So.
No, it's actually good since my oncologist is now telling his other patients, because he thinks I'm doing a good job and like I'm 6 years out. Like he's now telling them, you have to take naps.
That's good. Interesting. I'm curious, how do you guys keep yourselves informed on the latest treatments? Do you just talk to your doctor? Do you check out Dr. Google? Are you part of like support groups and things like that? Do you look for information? And if you do, where do you go?
So for me, I'm part with my dad. Actually, we're part of a few Facebook groups and American brain tumor groups and informations about trials and things coming out. I reached out to Sabine when I had one of my scans that came back a little funky, so kind of using the Epic Experience alumni. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'm a part of just Facebook groups online that I follow. It doesn't seem like there's many. I don't know about what you guys. I'm curious what you guys think about this. It just doesn't seem like there's much. I'm sure there is things in the works. There has to be, but it seems like it's Timidar, PCV, radiation, and I guess like it just. So I feel that's just what I feel like is out there. So
yeah, unfortunately, there's I think with PCV, let's say it's 3 different drugs. It's one, they give you all 3 at the same time. So it's that. And there's Avastin, which is not really a chemo drug. It's more like a blocker from the blood flow to the tumor. And it's being used in other cancers as well. But, and there's the fact only 5 drugs and 1 device have been developed. There's the device, what's it called again? Optune device. Yes, Optune device where you have wear patches and get, let's dumb it down, electrical shocks.
Right.
And that's supposed to help. And then there's radiation. I'm very involved in the brain tumor community. I volunteer for the American Brain Tumor Association. There's, out of the Broad Institute, there's a big initiative called Count Me In, where patients can opt in to choose their data and tumor sample and saliva and blood sample if they want to be entered into a nationwide or global database at some point. And I like initiatives like that because they empower you as well. It's called the Brain Cancer Project if you're interested in that. And then Twitter is actually my go-to resource for all things brain tumor. All the scientists and researchers are out there. And if I have a question or if I need some information, I just tweet it out and then you get some responses from worldwide neuro-oncologist, and then obviously the one, my personal neuro-oncologist here at Sloan Kettering.
Right. All right. Well, we have time for about 1 more question. So I'm wondering if what you guys, it's kind of a 2-part thing, I guess, but was newly diagnosed, and as part of that, is there something that you know now that you wish you would have known then? Like when you were first diagnosed?
Yeah, I really thought that I was so devastated, of course, and I thought that there was no one that could possibly understand how much pain I was in and how upset I was. I thought, I was kind of being encouraged to like reach out to groups and talk to people that were in the same position. And I thought to myself, I was like, they can't possibly understand how I feel. I thought, this is so bad that I can't talk to people there. I'm sure it's going to be like, oh, let's just get through this. Everyone's going to be happy, not happy, but people are going to be positive, and I don't feel positive. Right. And when Epic was the group that I actually, finally got connected with, and I found out that other people hate this too. So, we talk about how upsetting this is and how, we can connect about the difficulties. And so I wish that when I was diagnosed that I didn't wait so long to get connected, because it probably would have helped me through those really difficult months if I had known that there were people that feel as horrible as I did. That's what I would wish I knew.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I would second that. For me, I waited a long time to kind of reach out and connect with anybody in cancer. And, like some people my age, one of the first experiences I had when I did try and connect, everyone was of a different age and of a different cancer, and I felt like I couldn't relate. So definitely, like Ellen said, getting out there and putting yourself out there and being able to be vulnerable, and just realize that there are other people going through what you're going through, because it can be incredibly isolating. So, being vulnerable, trying to put yourself out there. And, the other piece of advice would any cancer would be just get it tested somewhere else too.
Yeah. Get a second opinion. Definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
I like what both of you have said, and I would label that with the big community. I always encourage people to look for others who went through the same. You're not alone. Brain cancer is not a death sentence. We're still here years after, and we're all a statistic of 1. I always say that. Because if you do go to Dr. Google, the statistics for brain cancer are really, really bad. but there is a community out there who understands you. And I think some of you may have seen, I wrote a blog for Epic a few years ago, and it's titled "When I is Replaced by We, Illness Becomes Wellness." It's by Malcolm X, and I truly believe that you don't have to go through it alone. Share it with others, and life will be better.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us. And I'm just going to give you guys all a round of applause because you're all still here. You guys are rocking it. Thank you so much for taking your time, for being vulnerable, for sharing what you went through. And next week, we will have another episode of Beyond Cancer series. So please join us. And you guys all have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Sabine, Jim, and Ellen. We really appreciate
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care. Bye, you guys.
Epic Experience was founded after my oldest son, Michael, was diagnosed with testicular cancer in 2007. I wanted to offer up hope to other cancer survivors so people know they're not alone, so that they know they can get out and start living again. It just may look different than how it did before they had cancer.
Epic Experience is unique in the fact that we really pride ourselves on trying to take anyone and everyone that we can. It doesn't matter when you were diagnosed. If you've been diagnosed 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, we don't put a timeline on it. We say that, you know what, if you've had cancer come into your life, we have a place for you.
Epic Experience. One word, it's epic. You have a chance to come up here and do some things that you've never probably done before.
This camp has taught me, like, why are you afraid? Like, what's stopping you? I got out on the water in the pond here, and I'm like, I haven't done a headstand in a long time. And it's really difficult to do it on water. And I'm like, what am I afraid of?
At camp, it's about healing your soul and your spirit and living beyond that cancer diagnosis, having fun, being with people that understand, and really just embracing everything that life has to offer you.
They just said you were going to go to a camp, and I didn't even know where it was going to be. I got hauled up the mountain and got to play in the snow, and the thing that happened is I rediscovered joy, found myself again. Favorite memories from camp? Running down the hill in snowshoes. It's something I never really considered before.
I got on a sled today, and I'm going to be honest, I mean, I've beat cancer, but I was still nervous to get on a sled.
Well, kayaking is individual. You're all alone in your boat, and it's you versus the elements and how strong you are and getting through the challenges that are coming up, whether they're rapids or something in the water in the way. And with cancer, it's you versus your diagnosis.
Epic Experience is about empowering adult cancer survivors and thrivers beyond their cancer diagnosis. It's about giving them a community in which they feel that they have people they can connect with, that understand them, and walk their shoes to really know, hey, you know what, I'm not alone, and I have people with me, and it's so important for them to feel that connection.
Things that I used to worry about don't worry me as much anymore. Family is critically important. Friends and experiences is what life is about.
Well, I didn't think I needed this week, but I needed it more than I knew. I needed to just play in the snow. I needed to laugh until my sides hurt. I needed to connect with people, even though I didn't think I did. I needed to find out that I'm not alone in things I think I'm alone in.
So here at the 7W Ranch, not only are the activities that we do for the week amazing, but just the beautiful scenery around alone makes it just so incredible.
I was feeling a bit lost and unsure how to cope with life after cancer. I feel like Epic Experience brought me closer to who I used to be and who I want to be in the future.
Want me to cry when I talk about 7W? It's magic. Just say, it's special.
If you are debating on coming on this trip, just do it. Don't hesitate. I hesitated. I waited till the last minute, and I am so grateful that I came here.
This has been life-changing. This week has absolutely changed my life in ways that I couldn't have even imagined that it would.
Epic experience is the right name for this experience. Trust, go for it.
Why can't you experience this? It's something that they've already been through, cancer treatments, whatever the therapy is, and this is another way to heal.
If you want to really check back in with yourself and find out where your inner person is and where your soul survives, come to a camp and just let it be.
Don't think about it. Don't wonder, should I? Just do it. Sign up for camp, and it will be an amazing experience full of a lifetime of memories.